Good. Oh,
Okay, they're all muted, so we're gonna unmute.
mine's working. Test, test, test. 1, 2. Site plan, as you all know, that's dream. Like to do it. I want to make this transition. My main thing is there's a demand for market rate apartments in Fairview now for younger workers, whatever it may be. Community. There's a demand for on about those small little cottages. Those will be very, use the word affordable. I mean, as we all know, and the crazy thing is when I started this project 3.5, 4 years ago, the amount of cost that has gone up. Still not there. Should I just start auctioneering stuff off here? So, all right, I'll do that. Never was a singer. So I'll stop there, and because I know there's probably a load of questions, and I think that's a better way of doing this than me just rambling. And what picture would you like up there? Just if
The site plan, color coded.
and normally on this type of stuff, I just bring this in so you guys can have an idea what I want to do. Obviously, things change, but
Did staff have anything to add that they felt was missed, or you good on that?
I think that his main point has been throughout our conversations to bring a affordable product and also serve a population that has a need for a 55 and over area of living that is not a medical scenario, but also serves kind of a group of people who may not be able to afford the $750,000 homes that are being built currently, but also would like to own a piece of property in Fairview, Tennessee.
I thought about it from the standpoint, I've been here now 16, 17 years. We've done, I've done developments and everything else, and this one I'm not letting go. This is one that I think we can all be proud of when it gets done, and it's going to offer a lot of product for a lot of different people. So,
Quit.
Yeah, it's just a discussion, so if we just take turns, don't step on each other's toes, but if you want to go ahead and start.
Okay, questions? I know this is just a rezoning request and we're not at the site plan approval process, but have you come to a conclusion on how many units you are planning for?
I'm asking for an RM12 now, which would give a total of about 450 total units. Of that, if you had to ask, and I was asked this question 2.5 years ago, I would say out of that between the market rate and the 55 and over, can you go back to the site plan, please? I don't know exactly. I would like to see a good 60 to 70 of those cottages up there, because those are going to be nice, and the reason I need the little bit higher on this is because to get the affordability down, you've got to get units. It's simple econ, right? So I guess to answer that question, probably around 300, 350 total, 55 and over, because those buildings will have anywhere from 40 to 50 people in them. And then the balance would be on the market rate, and then the balance would be on the cottages.
Okay. It's hard to tell from that being so far away, but it looks like there's 2 entrance and exits, and they're on to Fairview Boulevard. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am. That's per the market study.
Okay.
I'm sorry, traffic study.
So the traffic, you say you have done a traffic study
ma'am.
so far. Did they request dedicated turn lanes
Yes, ma'am.
into that? Okay.
Yep.
I'll
At this
let-
point, no signal, but dedicated turn lanes. But there again.
I'll let somebody else.
Okay.
Go
Thank you,
next.
sir. Ethan, I wasn't here the last time this project came before this board. I do know it received a unanimous approval at that point. What is different in this plan presented to us tonight based on the one that got unanimous approval before?
This project did come before this board in June of '21, I believe. And the things that are different on the back of the conceptual plan, he's removed some single-family lots back there. He's added a few more cottages into this. And he has maintained that there will be commercial on the front. But I know that at that point, there was a holdup as far as having RM12 and then having to come back in for a rezone to be able to have the single-family cottages. Those are no longer, I believe, going to be single-family cottages. Again, this is a rezoning that will be discussed further in the site development. But I believe that the developer's intent is to connect those so that those would meet multifamily housing as kind of a townhome-esque look, single-story townhome-esque. And that would fall within the RM12. And that, I believe, was also a question that was posed to Mr. Eastep in '21 about his plan.
So do you, between that plan that was approved then unanimously and this one, is there anything that from the city's standpoint would be negative?
From that plan, the city's position from our planning office is that this falls in line with the 2040 comp plan intent for the area, and that maintaining the commercial center on the front of the property, and then having a residential transition, multiple types of residential transition back to the legacy residential neighborhoods surrounding it meets the intent of the 2040 comp plan, and that we would recommend approval.
All right, last thing. If we didn't want to connect what you were just talking about to make them per se be allowable in the RM12, what would be wrong with doing a PUD and actually giving the single-family dwelling within the development?
Correct me if I'm wrong, I may misunderstand your question, but if he came in with a PUD, that would be part of, the PUD would be the zoning of that, correct, Patrick?
That's an option that the applicant could have come with. He did not. So what before you is a straight zoning on the back half to RM12. And to frame our discussion, to help you here, this is a legislative decision. You need to discuss whether it's consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan. You need to discuss if it fits in the context of the neighboring properties, and if it promotes the health, safety, and welfare and public interest of Fairview. That's the consideration tonight, not really the site plan, because the site plan's not before you. I understand why he's presented it to you and why you're interested in it. But to answer your question, he could have come with a PUD. Since has several different uses here, a PUD probably, if he was my client, I probably would have advised him to come with a PUD. But that's the reason why he's kind of linking them all in together and trying to make it all an RM12 straight zone.
Between this board and the Board of Commissioners, what would have to be done if the Board of Commissioners wanted to see a PUD? Would it have to come back to the Planning Commission, or could we have it on a future agenda for?
It's his application, so he would have to apply for a PUD, and there's different standards that attach, and a PUD is more complex. He probably would need professional help with it.
Yeah, that, can I interject? The way that the city of Fairview set up to do a PUD is It's a lot of time and a lot of money. If it's a 5-acre parcel that you're going to do something, but the way it's set up is that there has to be full engineering. There has to be full hydro studies, everything else, just to bring it in to see if it's going to be approved.
Is that different than other cities?
It isn't. It's the same, and we actually call them pods here in Fairview.
Yeah, that's correct.
For reasons that escape me, but they're called PUDs in other communities. And it's the same standard, it's customized zoning. It's usually benefits the developer because it gives them a lot more options, and then it can benefit the city because the neighborhood and the standards can be customized to fit the different products. And usually on a complex project like this, where you have many different uses, sometimes you can get a better result. But I think that's the consideration here. That falls under the promotion of health, safety, welfare, and interest. Does it promote what's good for Fairview in the name of health, safety, welfare? And is it consistent with the surrounding properties? And is it consistent with the 2040 plan? I think staff says it's consistent with the 2040 plan. I don't have any reason to doubt that. They've studied it. You need to look at the context of the properties around it. Is it contextually, that's hard to say, correct? And then the health, safety, welfare portion. Those are the factors for what's before you.
Thank you.
When I saw this, I went back to my notes from 21, from both times you were before us. Originally, it was a RM20 request that got denied. You came
Yep.
back with RM12.
Right.
It was a much better plan than the RM12, and it did pass. It was not unanimous, but it did pass Planning Commission. Then went to BOC where it was denied. And I think at that time, we were asking the same thing, PUD, why not a PUD, and the same answers. And I think that's where a lot of what got hung up in BOC is, I think, if I look back, I started searching the city website, it looks like 2018, it went from RS40 to commercial general. So, and now with a commercial general, you can do RM8.
Can't.
Still-
We went through all that.
You can't?
That's where I
You
got it
cannot do-
denied at,
Okay. Well, at one point you could, and I guess
You haven't
it had
been
been
able-
explained that it would always be legacy until they C3.
that was passed in 2019, by the way, so.
Okay. And I don't think, you got commercial in the front, that's I think the mixed development's what the ideal moving back. I honestly, not that this isn't needed here, but I liked the 1/4 acre lots that we were looking at backing up more than, there was a greater mix, I feel like. I know you have more amenities in this plan.
You have more amenities and a lot more green space, and that was the reason I did it. So I guess to answer the question, what this is different is that before, all the single family that are around there, I had lots packed all the way around the exterior there. And I've taken that out and just put all that in as green space. I just want to reiterate on the conversation about the pod or the PUD is that it's a massive amount of time. And what I'm looking at, and as I went through this last time, is if you all will do this, then you still have the ability, when I bring in the site plan, to kind of say, hey, we like this and we don't like this. So that's the problem with putting up conceptual site plans is everybody says, well, this is what you're going to do, right?
I think the challenge that we, even just some of us on this board alone, let alone some of the people that have moved on to BOC in different positions, have seen things come up and then go, okay, now we're stuck with this because that person has moved on from the parcel. And so then that mass zoning rules.
But when if it was moved on, like to say if I was going to sell it,
Yeah.
the next person that have to come in would have to bring that site plan in front of you as well. So and that's not my intention. That's my whole
Yeah.
point, is that's why I want to do this. This is what I do, and so
Yeah.
it's
To be clear about that, once it's zoned RM12 multifamily, it's zoned RM12 multifamily. So if he then sells the property or the project, then they could come in with a site plan that looks completely
they want.
different.
As long as it fits in
Because
there.
it's.
And in 5
as
years,
long
the
as
people up
it's-
here have no idea and we're against a
As long as
right
it's-
of the land.
As long as it's straight zoned, usually with a PUD, you have a little bit more control over exactly what it's going to look like.
And I definitely get, you've already been up here, got denied, so I'm not, but it's kind of catch-22 because we've already seen it. We've been on the back end of some of those that got zoned years before us already with issues that were straight zoning that probably were intended to be something else at some point. And I think the one thing that I commented on back in 21 was the area, that kind of little puzzle piece being that close to that lot there, and asking to maybe think about backing off there, and we're back up against that line.
Which one are you talking about? I'm sorry.
On the side over by Jefferson's, but kind of that puzzled notch, kind of asking to maybe back off from those lots that have houses on them right there a little bit. I had mentioned it in 21.
Here again, that's where I'm bringing the site plan and we can have all these discussions, and I'm wide open for it. I just, with the way the costs have gone, would I have to pay the water authority just to hook this up? And at some point, if I can't get the density, then I don't know. I guess I'm a proud owner of 50 acres in the middle of Fairview that I'm trying to offer things to people that aren't offered right now. Is there a 55 and over community on that?
Right. And I had voted for it then. I was one of the yeses, and even my name got put in there commenting on that then. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not the site plan, it's a zoning, but I'm curious, even if we approved it tonight, what's going to happen at BOC? Are we going to have the same conversation because it was RM12 then, straight zoning, and got denied?
And part of that, the reason it got denied is because there was a big push that I could do RM8, right? Why don't you just go do RM8? It's 50 acres, you can put 8 per acre. For the last 3 or 4 years, everybody has said, yeah, just do that, just do that. It was public, told me numerous times, okay, maybe I do that, and then all of a sudden, what happens is, when did we have our conversation? 5 months ago, where, no, you can't do that. What are you talking about? Well, here's a one-pager that got slipped into the,
Well,
I
got
mean,
past me too.
To be clear, it wasn't a one-pager that got slipped in, it was an ordinance that
okay,
got
I didn't
passed
mean
by
it got
the
slipped in. It was an ordinance that was
BOC.
passed, but
So,
nobody knew about it.
well, there was a public meeting, it was advertised and there was a public meeting, so clearly some people knew about it. So I take issue with that. It wasn't
Well, all I'm
slipped
saying is-
in, it wasn't something that was
All right,
against
that-
you or.
Wrong term.
Yeah,
I apologize
for sure.
on that. But wrong term, but on the same token, I'd been working with the city and no city staff or anybody, but fair enough. But that's where it got jammed up, was just go do RM8, and okay, maybe that's a way to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Eastup, good to
Yes,
see you again.
Yes, sir.
I know your intentions are good and well, and I know you want well for Fairview, but this is the same discussion we had in 21 when we denied the RM12 at the board level. Was, we referenced the plan several times. The plan does not matter in this instance. You could get it rezoned to RM12, sell it, and someone could build RM12, 468 apartments, as long as they meet our design review manual and our standard, zoning ordinance standards. And so, the cottages or the 55 plus, all of those are great intentions, but not anything that this vote tonight would ensure from our standpoint. And so the residential transition neighborhood, and that's why we talked about the RM8, the 2019 ordinance was not being enforced, it is now being enforced. That's what popped up. That was our discussions last time, if you had 8 already in place. The residential transition neighborhood speaks to multifamily, single family attached and detached, and then civic. And so the way it reads, development character is a mixture of small footprint residential buildings such as manor houses, 3 to 8 units, townhouses, 2-family houses, cottage courts, and cottages that are intended to transition from commercial along corridors to nearby established single-family neighborhoods. And then appropriate zoning uses are RS15, RS8, RS5, and RM8 with a PUD. And so not a listed RM12. It does mention or reference multifamily. But the way I interpret that, the spirit to me feels more like a single-family project because 4 of the 5 zoning uses are single-family zoning uses recommendations. And so I don't believe that it fits as an RM12 blanket. And it was the same discussions we had in 21 of we had just received our town center PUD submittal. It's 50-acre piece, similar in size. An RM12 density would make this project more dense than our town center project. Our 2040 plan speaks to the town center being the highest density property. Our highest density is going to be condensed in our town center area. So this project would be a higher density than that town center project. that town center project was a PUD. And so it designated certain areas of this area will be used in this is the maximum quantity, this area will be used in this is the maximum quantity. It gives us architectural, it gives us elevations, it breaks down in very intense detail what that product's going to look like when it's done. And so that was the discussion we had. Why can we go to a PUD so we can ensure that it's going to meet your vision that you're explaining to us? So I feel like an RM12 would not allow you to capture that. You could go and do something completely different, not that you would, but forever's a long time, and we never know it. So we don't want to run into a wall in 10 years if this never gets developed that somebody could build 468 straight apartments right there. I think that's all I have right now. Sorry.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I was wondering, you said that it's over 55. Is it over 55, no kids?
Yes.
So I'm over 55, so apartments and all that is surrounded by kids.
Yes. But the living quarters, you can't have, I shouldn't say you can't have. You can have grandkids and whatever come over, but the actual residents are 55 and over.
I mean, I love the over 55. I just think,
It doesn't preclude you from having grandkids or kids over. In fact,
no,
we
I'm
even
not
put
worried
this
about
in-
that. I'm worried about the fact that if you're moving because you want to be over 55 and around 55, but yet you're surrounded by families, you still have kids everywhere.
Well, yes, there's going to be kids in the apartments, no question. Yes. But
And
there-
the single-family homes.
There'll be cottages. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I have.
Because if we put the pod together like that, then there will be if that's the intention, that there will have to be a pod put together for this with single family, then yes, there'll be. But that's just like the picture I put up earlier where I showed that we had the 55 and over and there was the market rate behind them. That's the scenario. Yes, ma'am. And there's also single family around that as well.
So I would like to, if this board will have another opportunity to ask questions during the regular meeting. So I would like to have the citizens give them an opportunity to ask questions or just make comments on this while we have the work session open. So at this time, if there's anyone who would like to just speak to this, come join us. If you could, just get a little closer to that microphone so people at home can hear you. Thank you.
I live right down the highway from this. I already have a very hard time zone to get out of my driveway. Unless somebody's nice enough to let me out, and then certain times in the afternoon, I might as well not even leave my house. I sit there 15 or 20 minutes, you know. So, and I'm a senior. So, I mean, it's very concerning to me that, you know, now with more traffic, will I be stuck in my house except maybe 2 hours a day, a window to go and do what I need to do? Because I'm right in front of the schools. So it's a big concern for me. I mean, other people, maybe they can get where they need to go. But then there I am stuck. So that's my big concern.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else?
Hello. There we go. As most of y'all know,
If you could just state your name.
my name is Chad Warren. Most of you guys here know me. Most of the community here knows me. Mr. Ben, I love this concept up here with this thing. It's a great concept. I think it's a great thing for our city. However, I don't think that this actual spot for our city is where this needs to be. For me personally, I live on Glen Haven, right behind Jefferson's Restaurant. We have a lot of people coming in and out from school, coming down Glen Haven already. I believe there is a potential another access from this property on Glen Haven. Correct with that, Mr. Ben? Potentially. Okay. So actually, I'm kind of right here in this little corner lot right here, where it kind of comes down and does the L right there. This has kind of been my whole concern of this whole thing is, you know, I see these pictures of these 3-story apartment buildings, condos back there. I was born and raised here. That's not what I want in my backyard. I'm not here to stop growth and development. If we're putting houses back there, that's fine with me. I'm tickled to death with houses. But for us with RM12 zoning, the other thing that scares me to death about this, as many of you have said already, is if we go ahead and vote this in on a RM12, heaven forbid something happened to Ben on his overlaying his plot, whatever, he has to sell, get out. We've got somebody coming in out of state, doesn't really care about Fairview on RM12. They can come in here and stack whatever, because like y'all said beforehand, y'all are catching the back end of a lot of stuff that's been voted through, and the community has gotten upset, you know, kind of like the Castleberry development over behind Castleberry. I don't think hardly any of you guys had any say in any of that. Here comes the developer, comes in, builds this out, everybody's throwing a fit. It's been past years prior before development ever started on it. So that's kind of my concerns about it. Traffic is always, you know, I'm glad Ben has done a traffic study on that, but I'm like the young lady that was up here earlier. Traffic is a nightmare getting in and out. You know, I love this concept. Do I think that's the right place for it? My personal opinion is no. So, thanks for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you. And just for the sake of time, folks, everyone's welcome to speak, but if you're going to say something that's already been stated, let's just keep this moving. We understand that everybody has probably shared opinions, but we do have others that will have also trying to get into this work session before the meeting as well. Thank you.
My name's Craig Cropper. I live right across the street. Proposed here altogether. So say 400. Yeah. So we're looking at say 1,200-1,500 people. If there's 3.5 people per unit. Maybe a little high, but. So you got 1,500 people, and you've got, I don't know how many people getting out of school, high school, middle school. You've got the new development out on Cumberland, and I don't know how many people lives there, but I'm going to guess, you know, 1,500 probably. So, I mean, you're looking at 5,000 people right, coming out, going to work, you know, every day, you know, and it's already, like the lady said, you know, if you, at 4 o'clock, getting out of my driveway is 10-minute deal. And, you know, the property's going to be developed. I want it developed. It's a growed-up hayfield now with an abandoned house. So, you know, I want Fairview to have something nice. I like the commercial. I mean, I got to be honest, I do not like apartments. I think we got enough. I don't think we need more. I think we need single family if the housing, you know, if you can work that out and make it work, but my vote would be no apartments, and that's just the way I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we appreciate it. I think we will move on to the second topic. Sorry to leave you 17 minutes here. I'm sure we can run a little over if needed to discuss if it's necessary. You didn't have to read the resolution. I was just simply, you had met with them, so if you just wanted to just give an introduction to who they are and what they're here to talk about, that'd be just fine.
The second item for discussion is PC 3023. It's a rezoning. The current zone is other non-conforming. Whenever it was originally zoned, it was not given a zone. The group here tonight is Cortera. They are here seeking a RM8 designation for their zoning.
Good evening. My name's Kevin O'Brien. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. This is my colleague. Ben, do you mind putting up our first slide? And actually, we can jump to the second slide. But again, my name's Kevin. We work for Cortera. I lead the Nashville Development Office. Just a quick introduction on Cortera. I know our name can be confusing. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of Lennar. Lennar is one of the oldest and largest single-family developers in the nation. They've been building homes since 1954 and have been a public company since 1972, which we believe makes us very transparent and trustworthy. We've done a lot of projects. I want to introduce the site to make sure we all understand where we're talking about. Ben, if you don't mind going to the next site. But we're looking at what is a 36-acre parcel at the corner of Highway 96 and Highway 100. It's where the current USPS post office is. That's actually part of our site. It's something we're interested in keeping. I know the city's interested, but hopefully that lets everybody know where we're talking about. Its current zoning is OTNZ, NC, which stands for other non-conforming. From our conversations and our understanding, is when the zoning code was put in place, that was more of a placeholder intended for a future rezone. And again, because of our limited time, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. I'd love it to be more conversational, but I want to try to get through this. So our site, it's important. It does have some challenges on it. There's topographical challenges. There's stormwater drainways on it.
One second, sir. If we're going to have side conversation, gentlemen, can you just step into the hallway? It's a little bit distracting. These gentlemen are trying to present. Thank you.
There's TDOT easements, Highway 100's a TDOT road. There's limited access. We believe there's going to be a significant amount of rock on the site. However, we've accounted for most of these factors in our due diligence. We believe we can make this a feasible development and an attractive development in spite of the challenges. And then if you've ever driven here, you're probably familiar, there's some access challenges or even kind of dangers. A lot of drivers will go against the flow of traffic to either get into the post office or leave the post office or get into Thompson's Kitchen or leave Thompson's Kitchen. And part of our plan is through a collaborative effort with TDOT and the city of Fairview would be to clean up that entrance. We have a site plan that we'll put up here and I'll talk to more of that in a second. But high level, we are seeking a rezone to RM8 to accommodate a townhome development that we believe is consistent with the 2040 plan. Our projected density aims to be between 190 and 220 townhomes, depending on site conditions and buildability, which we'll get into in our site due diligence period. So, Ben, if you don't mind putting up the site plan. And again, this is a representative rendering as it sounds like everyone understands we're here for a straight rezone. However, we put a significant amount of work in making sure we've thoughtfully developed this site, hopefully with what Fairview wants, with what fits. We think this is a great representation of it. I'm not sure it's the exact final answer. That will be in kind of our site plan phase. But this rendering shows kind of how we plan to front load the townhomes on the site. Of the 36 acres, the part developed represents about 20 acres, leaving about 16 acres untouched in the back. We would like to see that utilized both as an amenity for residents of this development and hopefully residents of Fairview as a nature walking trail. Ray and I have traversed the woods here significantly. It's pretty beautiful. And if we could work out an easement with either the Lions Club or the ballpark, we would envision a connection there, allowing access, but also allowing use of the trail. And that also helps us save a number of trees from clearing the site back there. We have 2 true entrances drawn. This has come through several discussions with TDOT. This is not final again, but we've gotten a lot of input from them We also have met with Chief Hughes from the fire department here to make sure that we would accommodate what fire requires. But the first entrance would be the main one. Our hope would be to activate a commercial corridor here. We've got the post office along with Thompson's Kitchen, and Phase 3 Electric has just come in behind. They actually use an easement on the other side of Thompson's Kitchen to get back there. But it would square up the entrance for all three of those businesses to the median cut that exists today instead of being offset. We have had initial conversations with Thompson's Kitchen about this. Phase 3 Electric would be another one if they want their access there. Obviously, they've got something existing, but something we want to pursue and we're open to. We think that the redevelopment of that entrance will improve the safety and access for all three and kind of create a commercial node there. We do aim to have a wooded buffer on the majority of the sites. That's what, obviously, there's a large buffer between the park there and more on the backside, but we would like the commercial corridor, and the frontage will be where we push the development towards. I want to touch on the amenities. We have built a lot in the southeast, and I think we have one of the best amenity packages. There will be a clubhouse here, has a resort-style pool, will have restrooms in it. For this type of development, it'll likely have some kind of permanent work offices for people who live here but want to work from home type availability to them. There's going to be green space, resident gathering areas. There's a playground that we would put in, and of course, I already mentioned the walking trail that we would like to use on the back portion, and if able, connect to the park.
I may have missed it if you already stated it, but what kind of buffer would be between Fairview Boulevard and that first row there? What would be stopping just anybody from, I guess, just easily walking out towards that street?
Yeah, it's likely we would have a large landscape buffer with fencing. There's actually some pretty steep topo there. It's a large ditch that's going to force us naturally to kind of have an offset buffer there, not being able to build up against it, but that is certainly one. It would benefit the residents of our community to have a landscape buffer there as well, for aesthetics and noise.
Does that also mean that we don't need, or the sidewalk, we don't need a sidewalk along Fairview Boulevard?
And not to interrupt, but it's a really tough conversation. TDOT owns a lot and controls that whole frontage there. They've actually got restricted access. So it might be more of a question of what TDOT allows us to do. I'm pretty sure we can't put sidewalk because of their restricted access there. I don't know if you were going to jump in on that, Ethan.
Exactly what I was going to say.
How close is your entrance to the on-ramp and off-ramp? And are those with the turn lane? Is TDOT's rule 1,000 feet there, a quarter mile, or is it?
It should be 1,000.
So you should have enough quarter. You should have a quarter mile there.
And again, I want to clarify, that hasn't been agreed with yet. We're working on
Sure,
that. and
that
that'll
will be
in site
difficult
plan.
because we've struggled with that in Spring Hill on several different projects, and they've become. It used to be they did not enforce the distances, and now they've become very
Yeah, we've located the
forceful on
access.
those. So-
We're meeting them again on site tomorrow. This is at the forefront of our diligence. I know we're here for a straight rezone, but internally, we're working seriously on that. As I mentioned, access is a challenge to this site.
Can I ask a question, please? According to the future land use character map, it also represents a town center portion. I'm not seeing town center in this presentation, so how do you address that?
My interpretation of that is this was one of 3 sites considered for a town center. There was another site actually selected, and we could actually jump ahead a slide to talk. Our future land use actually splits. We're circled in the red here. We've got the brown and the pink, which is actually a residential transition area and a commercial corridor. So correct me if I'm reading that wrong. I'm not sure it is a town center. But I can keep kind of diving. Go ahead.
Yeah, so let me, piggyback on that. It does also mention commercial center. So as far as you're concerned, the commercial is just limited to basically what's already there. It's not adding any commercial, is that correct?
That's correct. So, again, our choice in doing what the city wants, we would like to keep the post office there. It's not our intent to build over or remove that. It's actually our intent to improve that so that it matches the character of what we build here. And working with Thompson Kitchen can provide this front entrance there. But no, we don't plan to add additional commercial. So moving on that, again, we've got the two kind of areas here. I was going to just call some quick attention to the residential transition. It calls in the appropriate land use for townhomes up to 2.5 stories and an RM8 zoning. We will be capped at 2 stories. The RM8 zoning on our site would allow almost 290 homes. We're under density there. The reason being, one, topographical challenges, but we don't think we can responsibly develop that density or successfully do it onto that site. And we like being able to leave that large undisturbed area because I'll point out in the 2040 plan, that's one of the objectives of Fairview. And then the commercial center, it actually does call for retail, office, industrial, and multifamily up to 3 stories. We think that the intensity of that commercial zoning is a little aggressive for that site, which is why we're pursuing the RM8 and townhomes as opposed to kind of building on that commercial part and going 3-story traditional apartments. I'll get into kind of why townhomes, why we see it. Hopefully you agree with the 2040 plan. Ben, would you flip forward one? But there's kind of 3 main things that jumped out at us in the comprehensive plan. The first one is jobs. Page 42 in the comprehensive manual has this graphic where it kind of explains who commutes into Fairview, who works within, and who commutes out. And overwhelmingly, it's 4,600 residents commute out. We believe that that points to there's either a need for housing that Fairview's filling or a need for jobs. We think it's the former, that there is a need for housing, that people need affordable housing, and that can be provided here. I think when we go look at the homes, this further proves that point. This is from Redfin, a popular for sale home website. In the last week, there's 11 locations in Fairview for sale right now under $365,000. Only 4 of those are actually homes. The other 7 are raw pieces of land. And the 4 homes range from 600 square feet to 1,600 square feet, which I think is important to point out is all below what we would build in a townhome. Our townhome average is about 1,700 square feet and goes up to just under 2,000. And then last, kind of the objectives and how it aligns with the 2040. The plan calls out for, in neighborhoods, settlements, transition areas, to preserve the rural character. Open space and under density are 2 words that are actually in it. I hope our site plan demonstrates both of those. With the large space we're leaving and the density we're trying to achieve here. It also mentions preserving the land as a communal space. That's our intent of the walking trail not only being for residents of our development, but hopefully we can work with the park and tie in there for all of Fairview. And then last, preserving land that's economically and environmentally constrained flood areas and steep slopes. In exchange, the plan even says they're willing to allow the land to be developed in a more compact manner. That back portion has a drainage easement through it. It has a sewage system through it that's critical to Fairview. We've met with Michael Rogers, and that's why we want to push it to the front of the site there. So can dive in more to the 2040 plan, but just wanted to walk through a little bit of what we build. You can go to the next one, Ben. This shows some exterior renderings. Obviously, we're not in the site design and design process. We know Fairview has strict building codes that we will adhere to. The top are renderings that would show kind of the footprint of the building. We're aiming for 5 to 6. I think that the comprehensive plan wants up to 8 or really under. The bottom's actually a product we've built here in Franklin. It's got a stone and a rock kind of knee wall with garages in it. We're planning to build townhomes all with attached garages under them and parking accommodated in a driveway. We can go to the next picture. This shows interiors that we've done before. Starting in the top, we're in a kitchen to a dining room, moving up to kind of what a bathroom and a bedroom would look like, along with the outdoor patio. I do think it's important to note that Cortera, all good. We put our highest interior finish package in whatever home we build, whether we're at the 300,000 or the 700,000 target. Our belief is we put the best interior finish in. And to be clear, we're hoping that this project serves the 300 to 400,000 price point, since that's what I just showed in Redfin is missing. You can go to the next slide, Ben, but to get into the detail, I mean, that's quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances. We're doing LED puck lighting, kitchen islands with pendant lighting. We think it's very attractive product. We think it's the best product in its class. And last, our amenities are really meant to be the crown jewel of our development. This is a clubhouse. We think it's one of the most modern ones you'll find. We find it's a great place that residents love to come and hang out and congregate in. Just highly desirable. So again, I hope I didn't rush through that, but we'd love to use today for your input and just kind of start the discussion on that and hear any questions you guys have.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and I think for the sake of letting the community be heard, because we will have an opportunity to talk with you again during the regular meeting. So if there's anyone here that wanted to speak to this, if you wanted to do that now, now would be that opportunity. Okay. It is pretty much right at 7. Should we take a short break? And we'll say 7:05, we will start the meeting. Thank you. Everybody grab a seat. We will call the Fairview Planning Commission September 12, 2023 regular meeting to order at 7:07. If we can have a roll call, please.
Ms. Schilling,
Here.
Ms. Sinyard,
Present.
Ms. Schulist,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Butler,
Present.
Mr. Callie,
Here.
Mr. Magner,
Here.
Ms. Williams,
Here.
Mr. McDonald.
Here. Everyone will rise for the prayer and pledge. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to gather here today. Be with us as we consider what's before us and guide us to sound decisions through constructive discussion and debate. Give us patience and understanding throughout the process. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will move to approval of the agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
Sorry, Johnson, Williams. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Mr. Callie,
Aye.
Mr. Butler,
Aye.
Ms. Schulist,
Aye.
Ms. Sinyard,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling, Mr. McDonald.
Aye. We'll move to citizen comments. Do we have any for the evening?
None tonight.
Thank you. Move on to approval of the minutes for the August 8th, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Johnson, Sinyard. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Sinyard,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling,
Aye.
Ms. Schulist,
Abstained.
Mr. Butler,
Aye.
Mr. Callie,
Aye.
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald.
Aye. All right, we will move on to new business. Item number 1, PC Resolution PC 29-23, rezoning Bark East LLC, 2451 Fairview Boulevard, 39.17 acres, map 046, parcel 87.00, current zoning CG Commercial General, proposed zoning RM12, multifamily, property owner Bark East LLC. We will start with staff comments on this item.
Before we begin, the applicant whispered to me before we started that he was going to ask for a deferral or
Okay.
table. You're asking it be tabled or deferred? Table doesn't, it's not rescheduled. Deferral would be rescheduled in 30 days.
Let's defer it then.
So he's asking for a deferral.
Okay. Is there-
Deferral, 30 days.
Second.
Johnson, Schulist, motion to defer. Any comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Schulist,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling, Ms. Sinyard,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Mr. Callie,
Aye.
Mr. Butler,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald.
Aye. Motion passes to defer PC Resolution 29-2390. We'll move on to item number 2, PC Resolution PC 30-23, rezoning Quartera Fairview Boulevard, 36.16 acres, map 042, parcel 42.00, current zoning OT&C other non-conforming, proposed zoning RM8 multifamily, property owner Dwaraka Farms LLC. My apologies if I mispronounced that.
Good evening again. My name's Kevin O'Brien, lead the Nashville Quartera Development Office. I know we got to speak briefly about this, so I want to make sure we have time for feedback, but I'll reintroduce the project. Again, We are looking at approximately 36 acres on the corner of Highway 96 and Highway 100. It's where the current United States Post Office is located. That's on our site. Again, we are interested in keeping that on our site as a post office, as I know the city would like. Our current zoning is OTNC, other non-conforming, which our understanding is when the zoning code was put in place, this is more of a placeholder for future rezone. Our site has significant challenges to development. Topographically, there's several water drainways, there's TDOT easements, there's limited access, and likely a significant amount of rock. We have accounted for this, believe we can make an attractive and feasible development. And then the largest challenge would be its current entrance is difficult and borderline dangerous for both our post office and Thompson's Kitchen, with people traveling by car against the flow of traffic to either enter or leave the post office and enter or leave Thompson's Kitchen. We intend to address this issue collaboratively with Thompson's Kitchen, TDOT, and the City of Fairview as part of this plan, and are therefore seeking a rezone to RM8 to accommodate a townhome development that we believe is in line with the comprehensive 2040 plan, with projected density between 190 and 220 townhomes, subject to our due diligence and really figuring out the buildability of the site. Happy to go into more detail, but definitely want to open up for questions from where we left off.
Yeah, before we, point of order, we need a motion and a second before we move to this talking.
I'll motion we approve.
Second.
Senator Schulist? Well, I'm sorry, we're not going to call the roll yet. So if staff has anything to add to this before we just open it up to discussion from the board?
Yeah, we can, we do have our staff report. We can read into the record if you so choose. Mr. Kevin O'Brien has submitted to the City of Fairview a request to rezone all 36.18 acres of the property located at 1890 Fairview Boulevard, Highway 100. Property is currently zoned other non-conforming. The requested zone district is multifamily residential RM8. The property is located on the north side of Fairview Boulevard at the interchange with State Highway 96. There's an attached boundary survey of the property. It illustrates the 36.18 acres. Property is road frontage along Fairview Boulevard as well as on Highway 96 North on-ramp. The Fairview Forward 2040 Comprehensive Plan shows this tract of land to be divided between two future land use and development classifications. The western half of the property is designated as commercial center, while the eastern half of the property is designated as residential transition. Information sheets for the commercial center and residential transition classifications from the Forward Fairview Plan are attached to the staff report for reference. The commercial center classification indicates the CC and OPS zone districts are appropriate, and appropriate land uses include retail, restaurant, office, light industrial, multifamily, as part of mixed-use development and civic institutional land uses. The residential transition classification indicates the RS15, RS8, RS5, and RM8 with PUD as appropriate zoning districts, as well as a mixture of residential land uses such as multifamily, single-family attached, single-family detached, as well as civic and institutional. Property is surrounded by RS40 zone property to the south, to the north, and to the west. To the east are three parcels, zone CG, commercial general, that contain the post office as well as Thompson's Kitchen. The proposed townhouse development for the entirety of the property is not in keeping with the portion of the property classified as commercial center future land use, but is in keeping with the portion classified as residential transition future land use. Due to the property having frontage onto Fairview Boulevard, Highway 100, and Highway 96 North on-ramp, the property has extremely limited opportunities for ingress, egress. Primary ingress, egress point located at the post office. Given the extremely limited ingress, egress points, the possibility of developing commercially on this property may be difficult, and a townhouse-only development may be better suited for this property. Stated reason for proposed rezoning. The applicant provided the following reason for the proposed rezoning. The current OTNC, other/non-conforming zoning, does not allow for the development called for in the Fairview Comprehensive 2040 Plan. We've been told that OTNC is a placeholder for future rezoning. We'd like to pursue rezoning to RM8, build townhomes consistent with the Comprehensive 2040 Plan. Staff recommends Planning Commission provide a recommendation to the Fairview Board of Commissioners that they approve the the request to rezone 36.18 plus or minus acres of tax map 42, parcel 42.00 as indicated on the attached boundary survey from the current zoning of other nonconforming to RM8, with the following condition of approval included in Resolution PC 3024. The one condition of approval is the rezoning request be placed on the Thursday, September 21st Board of Commissioners meeting agenda for consideration, with a potential for public hearing and second reading being held at the Thursday, October 5th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting. And that's the end of the staff report.
Thank you. At this point, we will open it up to the board for questions.
I have a question. Just because it's a little bit unusual. I mean, clearly, the post office doesn't own the land, they rent the building, so not that they regularly give up their buildings, but if they were to not be there anymore, you'd be able to lease it out to another commercial entity, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Piggyback on that, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely, sir. Go right ahead.
Who from the city told you that they wanted to keep the post office where it's at?
We have been through an extensive process here dating back to a year. Original conversations beginning with Sarah Toddy, former administration, and I believe it was Kevin Blackburn, that's right. That was where that initial idea came from. In speaking with Ethan and the current administration, I believe they're on board with that idea. I don't know that they stated the desire to keep it as strongly, but we have incorporated it in the plans from day one, especially since the original kind of reasoning was there wasn't another U.S. post office nearby.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone wants it to go away totally, but if it was relocated within the city, maybe closer to the town center here, I don't know who would be against that. So I just wondered who from the city may have told you that that's the location it needed to stay at. Secondly, on the commercial center thing, I realize in the staff report they read the part about it may be better suited for townhomes. Would you say, I know you do this for a living and you're not in the commercial aspect per se, probably more so in residential. That looks like, if that's just say 35 acres, half of that would probably be commercial that would be going away other than the post office that we're keeping, correct?
That's correct.
So the potential loss of revenue to the city from sales tax dollars is tremendous on this property if we zoned it RM8, because you're not going to get it back in property taxes off townhomes.
My opinion on that is this site would be very difficult to develop commercially without going back. I, in fact, know a grocer developer tried to do this a few years back and failed, and a big part of that is TDOT will not allow the access that I think a retail center would need. That's my opinion as an unprofessional commercial developer, but consistent with the city's belief that a townhome is the one that makes sense. Of our challenges, I think access is one of the biggest.
Okay. Two other things. One, you mentioned this being in the price range of around 300,000?
300,000 to 400,000.
300 to 400, okay.
Is the range we aim to serve today.
Okay. And if this straight zoning was approved, just like the previous gentleman, if we approved RM8, you're only wanting to build, just say, the 250 or whatever units that you're saying. More than that could be put on there. Y'all could decide to sell this, and all this area that you've got with nothing to be built, they could come fill it up with apartments. Is that not correct, Mr. Attorney?
And not to interrupt, it's correct, but I would let you know, we're limited to 2.5 stories at RM8. It's not going to be very feasible to build 2.5-story apartments. If we had gone RM12 and allowed 3-story, I think you would get someone to come build traditional 3-story garden-style apartments here.
No, I agree with that, but I'm saying if y'all just decided to sell out to somebody else, once we've zoned it, they come back in, they can just fill it full of apartments. A whole lot more units than.
The site is not feasible to put 2-story apartments on, and the development challenges of that back portion, I don't know if you were going to say, would be tremendous.
Yeah, I think.
If we could hear that from the staff assuring us of that, I think that would be Do we have a study that we can reference that's in writing, that the slopes are set at that and unbuildable?
We do not have a study currently that we could reference, but just walking the site, it is a significant slope going from the Lions Club towards the post office.
You also have a TVA power easement, which you can see in the satellite where the trees have been cleared. That would be another challenge and hindrance to cover. Critical artery, in discussing with Michael Rogers, of the sewer line that on our site plan, it really runs on the back portion of that tree line.
There's a large wet weather or a storm drainage that runs through here, and there's a large sewer easement that runs through here. So you have the sewer easement, you have the slope, and you have the power line. So this is very difficult.
For anyone to build on? Okay.
So you're not gonna densify this area without, one, getting water sewer to relocate a major sewer line that feeds Fairview. Two, you cannot develop under this, and you would have a small portion here to do something with. And then the slope restrictions are also causing other problems within the development, just through staying out of the 20% slope.
Okay.
Power lines, yeah.
So it makes most sense to use this as a natural area, to use it as an amenity, and to try to connect it to the park so that the residents can use the park, and vice versa, so that people can use this as an amenity.
Does that have access to 96 and 100?
It does not, again, to TDOT has restricted access almost entirely from this part of our sight line till about when we draw our entrance.
They have the TDOT fences start here, is what we believe. We haven't surveyed it, but we believe it starts here, and it runs all the way around, across the road here, and it runs here as well. So you cannot cross that fence.
So if I may, that's the TVA, not the TVA, the TDOT area up front. That's really what makes it difficult for commercial because, for example, a fast food restaurant or a gas station or CVS, they want to have access to the road. They don't want to be down one entrance and down a long access road. Those businesses tend to fail. Is that's where you're?
That's correct.
Chairman, if I could just play onto that, the commercial center corridor, one of the things it says is multifamily is part of a mixed-use development. And so that's one of the notes is going to make us, could we do something to complement in that Thompson's Kitchen area around there, with, if it's 5,000 square foot of retail or restaurant, or if it's 10,000, something small, to increase walkability, lifestyle for that community. You guys may be telling me that that business be set up for failure if it's tucked back in there, but that was one of the questions I had. Because the commercial center, we only have so many limited spaces where we can have commercial use in the future, and trying to incorporate them to where if you're going to have a high density area to where people don't have to get in their car and drive somewhere, they could walk to it, could limit our traffic input, and then also create a better space to live. But so if there's any potential for that.
I think in site design, it's something we'd be open to. It's something we've certainly done. That being retail as an amenity to our community, it's certainly not going to be a significant portion of the total square footage. But I think that's a conversation we'd be willing to have in site plan and design.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions.
Absolutely, go ahead.
What did you say is your time frame for the traffic study?
We are focused on zoning right now. The way kind of Cortera works is we're able to unlock different hurdles of due diligence spend. Once we feel comfortable with our zoning, traffic study would be at the top of the list.
Because, my concern there is I appreciate the improvements to the intersection, but I can also imagine very difficult residents, whether it's commercial or townhouse residents, having to turn out eastbound in the morning rush hour traffic there. And just in, that area can get really problematic. So I'm, before we, and I also appreciate what you're telling me about the topographic challenges along the northeast or northwest corner. However, I think when we just completely rezone the entire property and we just only look at the commercial piece as just a small corner, which is already kind of mostly existing, I also have a concern that we are outpacing our commercial capabilities in this community with residential, especially higher density residential. And to me, I think that does impact our quality of life and access to the services that are needed. So I would also tend to agree. I think we're losing a lot of that necessary commercial piece.
Again, a conversation we are willing to have and try to provide what you're looking for. I don't want to underplay the challenges here for that. Obviously, a traffic light would be great. That's fully in TDOT's control. In fact, TDOT's probably not likely to put a traffic light on Highway 100. And I would just point back to previous developers that have attempted to put commercial here, because I don't want to overpromise anything and not do it. But if we were to study and find that it wouldn't perform, I just don't think anyone would want to wisely put commercial here that sits empty, and I'm afraid that's what previous developers have found.
I think there's been some good discussion about the commercial, and Mr. Johnson made a good point. I mean, it is commercial opportunity, right? And then we would be taking away. However, I think if you leave it blank like it is now, the odds of somebody coming in there and building commercial on it sounds pretty low. So I think that you create a draw for potential commercial. I mean, I know this is just a rezoning at the moment, but when there's obviously, once there's residential involved, it changes the interest level in that area.
I would say I'm kind of on your. I mean, I hear what everyone's saying about eliminating another opportunity for commercial, but just improving that intersection is barely going to be enough for what's there, and so I'm a little nervous if we're putting a lot more commercial. I mean, I think your traffic study will be very enlightening, but that's been needed before the townhomes with just the post office and Thompson's Kitchen. And when Phase 3 really gets up and running and built there, they're going to be coming and going. They have trucks all over in the Nashville area. And when they finally have a center place to put them, it's going to be a lot.
We share your concerns. We've been through it with TDOT. I do want to point out there is a slow down turn lane already contemplated there. I mean, TDOT's going to require that. We would not build this without it. And the second entrance will be a right out, right in only, which is a fire code requirement.
And I think with
to have our second.
where TDOT requires an Excel decel lane, that's where the quarter mile setback from the on-ramp.
That's right. From
It's just
the
a right.
96 on-ramp.
Yeah, I think if it's just a right on, right turn, left turn, then I think they require 500 feet. It's a shorter distance, but if they're going to require that, you need a very long distance. So I would tell the board that's going to be a significant challenge because you're limited by the edge of your property where your entrance can be. So.
Which again, I feel like we're at the level of site plan discussion, but we are very much doing that and we're meeting with TDOT again tomorrow because it's critical to our development. But we're just as concerned with those items as you are and need a successful solution.
What is your, I know you've stated it, but what is your total number that you're looking for to build and as presented there?
With our kind of floor plans that we build, number of units together, 190 to 220.
That depends on engineering, right? This is an engineered plan. We fully engineered, surveyed, that we believe this is a concept density plan, which we believe that range is where we are today.
All All right, so what if you moved it to a mixed-use unit, kept 5 acres of commercial on top of the existing commercial, and were given a portion RM12 to boost you back to the number you needed to be at? Is that a possibility? If it all worked out, if it passed, if TDOT approved it?
Let me interrupt. So the application that's before us is what it is, and so we can't change their application?
Oh, no, I'm just asking them, my vote is gonna be based on, if they're telling me that that's a possibility, then that's gonna influence the way I'm gonna vote tonight.
You're asking going to an RM12, doing a higher density product over here and getting more commercial.
Correct, yes.
I think it all comes down to what is the commercial land worth? We have to obviously underwrite this and see if it's economically feasible. So to answer that question right now, I couldn't do it, but I do know that you're looking at a higher intensity, a taller building, right? You can only go 2
I was going to say, I would interject my thoughts there that I think you're getting away from what I read in the community wanting, but if we were to put more retail, and when we've built this in other cities, it goes on our ground floor, but we're going to put 3 or 4 story apartment above it, more of a traditional apartment. I don't think that was the intent of what was wanted, but you're talking about intensifying and building more here, to be clear.
More units and less buildings.
Assuming the commercial has value.
But we
Correct.
would need to go higher.
Correct. It was just a question.
We don't think that's the best use of this land, which is why we designed this plan.
I think when you think of the 2040 plan, I feel like this is pretty in line with it. When I think of what the 2040 plan was trying to bring, residential, where green space, get out, walk around, open. I mean, you have, in my opinion, offered quite a bit here. I know we're not to the site development, and this is all just hypothetical. But even as far as just the zoning goes, for what this area is, yes, there's some commercial in there, but the RM8, it's, in my opinion, not as near as risky as others that we've been presented with, where it would open up the possibility to, yes, you could sell it, and then someone could come in and do something completely different than what this is. But with the way you've described this land, with staff confirming that they believe that ought to be accurate, I think you're kind of limited on what you could do with this property. And when you look at the product that you're offering, in my opinion, it, to me, fits Fairview. And now, I'm one individual, I could be wrong on that, but when you look at the 2040 plan, what we are trying to do with that, I think this is in line with that, in my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I will just say that we've 2 big projects tonight, and so this 200-plus units is bigger than all but 2 of the active developments that we have in Fairview, one being built, one that's about to be developed, all the single-family projects. So we see a lot of 60 units, 50 units, 40 units, a lot of smaller units. So this 200 impact is a big number coming out on, I keep trying to wrap my head around, and a traffic study will help it, that all those people, unless they're going right towards Highway 96, will have to cross 2 lanes of traffic to get over through that 4-lane area right there. And it seems like it could be a very congested mess to me. And then the commercial center aspect that we mentioned earlier, if there's any way to try to incorporate, if you tell me it's going to fail, but it just seems if you're going to have 200 doors, you're gonna create a space for commercial. One would think, and so if we could somehow try to, my opinion, somehow try and incorporate some of that commercial use, and maybe that lowers the density. I don't know. I'm just trying to, the traffic and the commercial use from the 2040 plan are my 2 sticking points. If you have any recommendations.
We were open to that. I mean, I think our internal team would need to see the traffic study too to make that, we would make a database decision on it. I can't really sit here and say one way or the other.
When are you going to have that traffic study?
So after zoning, we would open up the traffic study in our full buildings. So we would go out and do our geotech, our environmental traffic study. So that's October 5th, I believe, is where we are. That opens up the full building. So the traffic study takes probably 4 to 6 weeks. So we're looking at November.
The question, I think the question, you can tell me if I'm wrong, you're not going to have the traffic study before you make this decision because they're not going to fund it and spend the money on it until it's rezoned. I think that answers your question. They have a timetable, but they're not going to spend the money on a traffic study, which is substantial, until they have the zoning in place, which is normal in the typical process.
I'll add to that. Not to mention, they're going to get a topo. They're going to get a survey. They're going to have their geotech go out, and then that's going to further limit or open up areas they weren't aware that are available. So it's just all about when they get to the rezoning process and it's passed, they can open up the door to other things to determine what's available to use and what's not available to use.
And to make sure that we're staying on firm legal grounds, the decision tonight whether to rezone it or not is whether it's consistent with the 2040 plan, whether contextually it's correct with the surrounding property, and whether it promotes the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Fairview. We got really in the weeds here on site plan, and again, I understand why that happens, and I understand why the developer shows us the plan, so we have a taste of what they're wanting to do, and I think that's important. But when it comes down, we have to make a rational decision based on those three criteria.
And I appreciate that, but we're happy to go into the weeds because we think we've dove into these same weeds ourselves as far as we can. But we need to unlock some money to spend, and that's a risk decision. And without zoning, it's not a risk that someone's going to spend that much money to do.
Any additional comments? Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Sinyard?
Aye.
Ms. Schulist?
Aye.
Ms. Schilling? Mr. Johnson?
No.
Mr. Butler?
Nay.
Mr. Callie?
Nay.
Mr. Magner?
Nay.
Ms. Williams?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
Aye. Motion fails 4-5.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Let's see. All right, moving on to bonds and letters of credit. We have Westway 2 reclamation bond set. Engineering, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, and just a quick correction. For Westway Phase 2 performance bond set, you can strike that from the agenda. It's just the reclamation bond. And that amount has been calculated to be $440,235.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed, you said the second one was strike that one out, you said?
Yes, the
Elevate-
Westway 2 performance bond set, you can strike that, as well as the Elevate Gymnastics performance bond set. These are commercial properties,
Gotcha.
therefore they don't require performance bonds.
Okay, we'll move on to the Elevate Gymnastics reclamation bond.
Elevate Gymnastics reclamation bond amount is in the amount of $233,449.
Thank you. Reports for discussion and information, starting with planning.
Thank you all for your time tonight and for giving the city as much attention as each and every one of you do. As far as a couple updates, training, a few of you have sent me items that you've done previously this year for training. I will be logging those items, and we'll have a couple other opportunities coming up to gain the rest of your hours for those of you who are lacking. And then I spoke at the last meeting about a training video. We have recorded that video. I am waiting on GeoCivics IDT to send the final version over. And once I have that, that will be out to all of you in your city emails. And then I think that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Tom, do you have anything for us this evening?
I just wanted to appreciate, just tell everybody thanks for the the IT difficulties tonight, and Keith is ill this week, and I appreciate Ben stepping up and volunteer to run the show. If anybody asked, I do not believe either meeting was sent out on Facebook Live, but it is recorded. It'll be on YouTube as well as the website.
Thank you. Engineering.
Nothing official tonight, just glad to be here and still enjoying the experience. So I appreciate everybody.
All right, thank you. Mr. Carter, do you have anything to add?
Just briefly, as we think about how to improve processes in Fairview with our planning commission, it might be useful to give some thought about having the work session for items that are on the work session, have that work session 2 weeks prior to actually when it appears on our agenda for voting, because the work session serves two purposes. It lets you learn, the commission learn more about the project, but it also allows the applicants to make minor changes or incorporate your feedback. And so, for example, there was some feedback tonight that if they had 2 weeks, they could make a resubmittal and actually address some of the comments. And unfortunately, the way we have it structured doesn't work like that. So it either results in a deferral or your feedback, resulting in a denial because it's not, obviously they can't take it into account. So as we think about moving forward, some of the conversation, particularly with the second item, would have been probably more useful to have 2 weeks ago or at our last meeting and then have it on the voting meeting tonight. We don't have to make a decision about that. It's just a thought I had, and I'm sure some of you have already had the thought, so it's nothing new.
Second.
Previously, a lot of times we did do it about a month in advance.
Does 2 weeks give staff enough time to, like, once they make the revisions, staff gets it back? Does it give them enough time to?
Well, it depends on the, at that point, the applicant could say, okay, well, let's not do it this next meeting. We'll make the changes and then, or take that into consideration and put it on for the following month. But if they're minor changes, they could make a resubmittal. I don't know. That's how it functions in a lot of communities, is a 2-week turnaround, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
I'd like to thank Patrick for keeping us in line tonight. I know that he had to get on us a couple of times because we do have a set task that we are supposed to vote on things. And I know I got involved in on the site plans as well, so I want to apologize for that. But what you just said, the 2 weeks ahead of time, I think that makes perfect sense. And I don't know if that's just staff sets that or if the board needs to vote on it or whatnot, but I agree. I think that needs to happen. Thank you.
Ms. Schilling.
I just wanted to say that I keep hearing everybody come up here and say affordable housing, affordable housing. It just adds so many more people to the town, and we don't have adequate highways, and we certainly don't have enough of businesses that are bringing the level of quality to our community. And I think that some of these new developments should be more expensive so more people will come out here and put their businesses out here. I mean, right now, we have no clothing store except Walmart. And I'm not saying a Saks, I'm saying a Marshalls. And for some reason, those places are not coming out here, and it just seems like we don't, they feel like they wouldn't get their money's worth here, so just my opinion. But thank you.
Ms. Williams.
I just want to thank the board and those who are here to allow us the opportunity to debate and have discussions and to, like our attorney said, think of the welfare and the benefit of the citizens when we make decisions. 2 weeks could make a difference in how we vote. It may not, but at least it's an opportunity, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the candidates, and I thank you for that.
Mr. Magner.
A question for staff. Do you happen to know if other professional licensure training applies to certification training is there a way that we can help verify that?
I will verify that and let you know.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for everyone coming out tonight. And I agree, some kind of joint work session with the board and planning commission, similar we talked about before, would be very beneficial, and kind of work out some of the kinks, have some good discussion, and not have to sit down and vote on it that night would be huge. I'm trying to keep a spread, I'll try not to talk too much, but I keep a spreadsheet of rezonings or potential townhomes or single families, and trying to keep an idea of kind of the number of townhomes and projects we have. And so this is a rough number. But tonight, if that rezoning, say it would get done, it would have been 200 townhomes, it would have been added by number, but it might still be 2 years out from being built by the time it's engineered and stuff. And so right now I have about 663 total future townhomes listed, just for reference. And so, and I'll talk about that as we get there, but I just wanted to put that out there of
How many?
663, and that is not engineered and approved. Like I said, so those still might be 2 years out, 3 years out. It may never happen, but just trying, those are places that are zoned that could be townhomes or came to us and said we would be townhomes. That's all I had tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cowley.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea too to talk about this ahead of time, and it doesn't have to be 2 weeks. The people tonight could come tonight for next month's, they show up today to give their presentation, and then we put them on the agenda for next month. So it could all be taken care of in one day, just you push them forward to the next month. Just a thought. Thanks for your help, though.
Mrs. Chulis.
Nothing for me.
I mean, I think we've always welcomed them to come at any point. I know there have been a couple developments that came 2 and 3 times and had public open forums prior, but they have to plan their time accordingly as well. And so sometimes people are willing to take the risk to come the day of or not have so I know it's up to the developer really more than anything on what they're willing to do, because they basically have to eat another month of owning the land empty effectively, or in order to come talk to us. But I think it's always been out there, and I think when we have done it, it's been very beneficial.
In regards to the training hours required, what penalties are individuals and/or the city faced with if those are not met? Is there any, or is there not any, and it's just more of a...
Well, you really shouldn't be serving on the planning commission if you haven't met your training.
I agree.
Under state law. And if I can tell you, if the city were involved in a lawsuit and there were planning commissioners that voted on a project and they hadn't had their training, it makes it awfully hard to defend. It makes my job very, very difficult.
To your point, I assumed that I agree with you 100%. I was just curious if there was any actual action that's taken if it gets to the end of the year and we don't, or if it's more of just a risk that is assumed by the city, as you pointed out.
I think it's a risk that's assumed by the city. I don't know about actual penalties because I've never had that happen yet, and so don't really want to find out.
That was the weird, when I looked back, because he sent the email, because they had always said, oh, we take care of all your training, you've more than exceeded it, and almost every year we'd get to a certain point, they'd be like, hey, you exceeded your training, even if you don't attend these other ones. And I was like, oh, all the changeover happened in March, we didn't get all our trainings.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add some notes. In January, we had an hour-and-a-half workshop on the zoning ordinance. In April, we had a 1-hour workshop on Robert's Rules. Both would be considered training in the past, and so that's 2.5 hours.
We had a February workshop too, I've seen them.
Okay. And so we have some hours, and I hear Mr. Chastain's really good at giving presentations, so maybe we could get some education in one of the next few meetings, maybe an hour work session or something before. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then I just wanted to follow up. There was, I believe, I remember a conversation about an IDT PowerPoint presentation or something being sent out to everybody just as a training. Is that something that's still in the works?
Yes, we have recorded it. I'm waiting on IDT to send me the link to send to you.
Perfect.
Can we count those? Like, I think you said it was going to be like 30 minutes or something. A way to prove we watched.
It's a little shorter than 30 minutes, actually. It's like a 20-minute video. But it walks through all of the steps of how you may notice in the last month your view on IDT has changed. We altered some of the view-only functions so that you can see a little bit more and hopefully find projects a little easier on IDT. I also included links in the email that I sent out with the agenda so that those took you directly to the individual pieces of the application. And those links are clickable without being logged into IDT. So you can utilize those at any time, anywhere that you are.
I'll add one thing to that. Having two work emails is difficult. I'm sure you all experience the same thing. Since we have the Microsoft Exchange email accounts for the city, I highly advise you to get the Outlook app on your iPhone. It's incredible. It looks just like it would on a desktop or a computer. So, good way to see emails constantly if you're missing them or looking at them last minute. I do that occasionally.
That is all for me. Thank you all for coming out. It was a productive work session, I think. It was community involvement. We always appreciate to see that. It makes us understand where you all feel a little bit better. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.